Why the hell not? I just wanted to get on the floor here and talk about my Garfield book collection. Yeah, this is a interesting little subset of my ever-growing collection of random junk. Nah, I actually really have a big appreciation for the Garfield brand. Obviously, a lot of people know what Garfield is. He's been around for a long time. He's still a pretty iconic pop culture figure, but I have a lot of appreciation for the brand. Not the comic strip specifically, mainly because that is what kick-started the whole brand, even though, Garfield as an entity has kind of strayed away from the comic in terms of its, iconography. But at the end of the day, Garfield, at least to me, is always going to be a comic strip at heart. And I have a lot of appreciation for the Garfield comics history and just ever-growing, just long-lasting run. Despite the fact that I may be very alone in that nowadays. Yeah, the Garfield comic strip has gone through a lot of different iterations, and by different iterations, I mean it pretty much has just gotten worse over time, at least to a lot of people. The earlier Garfield comic strips have a lot of charm to them, in my opinion, at least in terms of kind of capturing the era that they were written in. They just have this very old-fashioned feel. And I feel like, especially at the time, newspaper comics were, really booming at the time. And I think that's obviously why Garfield found a lot of success. And I think looking back at them from sort of that historic lens, it's just really nice. And I feel like even if you're not a fan of Garfield, you can still look back at some of the older comics and just, at least in terms of their, very simplistic humor and art style, you can find a little bit of charm in them. Now, flash forward to modern Garfield, not as much. I've read, my fair share of modern Garfield comic strips. I don't think that they're oh my, this is so terrible, like a lot of people seem to. But they definitely aren't as inspired or, good as older ones are. And that's saying a lot, because I don't think older Garfield comics are oh my god, the pinnacle of comedy. But the newer ones just kind of feel like we're just going through the motions, man. Which makes sense when you consider the fact that Garfield has been around for almost 50 years at this point, which is just insane to think about. But yeah, regardless of where Garfield is as a brand, I'm always going to have a fondness for this dumb little orange cat here, man. And you may be wondering, well, why do I have such a big Garfield book collection? Do I love Garfield that much? Maybe we should just cut it off here. I don't know if I want to answer that question. Now, there's a funny story as to why I have all of these, and it mainly goes back to when I was a kid. When I was a kid, Garfield had a lot of recognition to his name, mainly through a lot of the movies and shows that were coming out at the time. Obviously, you had the original Bill Murray Garfield movies back in the early 2000s, and those were not very good, but they were at least pretty iconic in terms of the fact that, they were kind of during that weird renaissance of early 2000s movies with CGI elements that are just very outdated nowadays, and also considering the fact that they were bad. A lot of people remember those movies, for better or for worse. But also, when I was more of towards the age of 8, 9, 10, we had the animated Garfield movies that I remember premiering on Cartoon Network at the time. Those being Garfield Gets Real, I believe was the name of it. That weird animated movie where Garfield is a actor portraying the character for comic strips. It's a really weird meta concept for a movie. I don't know if it's a horrible movie or not. I haven't watched it in a while, but I remember it pretty distinctly. And then they also made a couple other ones after that. I think there was Garfield's Fun Fest and Garfield's Pet Force. And I don't really remember anything about those movies. I do own the DS game for Garfield's Fun Fest. So, you know, go me. But yeah, between those and also there was the Garfield show, which I don't remember exactly when that premiered. I think it was like 2012, around that time. That was sort of its own entity. It was weird because like the animation style made me think, at least, that it was like sort of a branch from the movies, the animated movies. But no, it's very much its own thing. And I kind of like it for that reason because, you know, if they made a show based off of those weird meta Garfield movies, I don't think it would be a very good show. And the Garfield show wasn't like the best show either, but it at least had that more like grounded Garfield feel. Well, grounded in quotes. It at least took place in the regular Garfield universe, from what I remember. It's funny because when I was little, I actually remember watching the show Garfield and Friends, which was actually the original cartoon that they made of Garfield back in the 80s, which was, you know, obviously before my time, at least when it aired. But I remember watching a lot of those animated segments on YouTube and really, you know, being able to tell that it was a lot more of a faithful adaptation of the Garfield character. Yeah, and I had a couple DVDs of the 2D animated Garfield movies from the time. Like Here Comes Garfield, and I remember like the Garfield holiday specials. Those were really good. I remember watching those and getting a lot of enjoyment out of those as a kid. And you know, nowadays, you know, there's like the 2024 Chris Pratt Garfield movie, which is what I'm sure a lot of people are going to remember Garfield for in the modern day. But at least at the time, those movies and shows were what I remember Garfield for. So yeah, Garfield was, you know, a fairly prominent cartoon character at the time. So what would happen is, you know, I would go out shopping with my mom a lot as a kid, and every now and then we would go to Goodwill to kind of just like browse around. And usually what would happen is, you know, my mom would let me go to the kids section, or like the book section of Goodwill, and just pick out you know, 1 or 2 books that I wanted. And you know, I got a couple like normal books from that. Well, normal in the sense that, you know, they were mainly text based books, but I also had a lot of interest in Garfield books. And you know, for whatever reason, this specific Goodwill that we used to go to had a lot of Garfield books in stock pretty consistently. I don't remember what the first one I got was. I don't think it's this one. This is in fact the first chronological Garfield book, in the sense that it features like the first batch of original Garfield comics. I don't think this is the first one I got, but it certainly, you know, was one of the first ones I got. And it just kind of kickstarted my desire to collect as many of these as I could. I kind of had a weird interest in like the unnatural shape of these books. You know, obviously these aren't shaped like a typical like novel, and that's mainly because, you know, they consist of comic strips, of course. And you know, I don't know, I just had like a weird interest with that sort of novelty of these books. And also I just liked reading Garfield comics. I mean, I was like a, you know, 8-year-old kid, so you know, what else was I gonna read? Don't answer that. The point is, I liked Garfield. So anytime we would go to this Goodwill and my mom would tell me, oh, you know, go ahead and pick out a book or 2 that you want to get, I would usually gravitate towards these Garfield books, if they had any, and usually they did. So yeah, just you know, over time, I just collected more and more of them. Right here we have the second one, and you can kind of tell that these are used. Like, they're not in like the greatest condition. You know, when I got them, they weren't like, you know, brand new books. But I feel like over time, you know, I preserved them fairly well. You know, I didn't roughhouse with them. Well, maybe this next one. This next one, you know, it's not as like it's not bound together as well as a lot of the other ones I have. I think it kind of came like this. You know, what are you gonna do? But yeah, no, just over time, just anytime we would go to this Goodwill, I would just mainly ask to get the Garfield books that I saw there. And sometimes they had these, they were called Fat Cat 3-packs of, you know, it was like a compilation. These were really cool because like this felt like I was getting like, you know, more bang for my buck, because I think these weren't really priced like that much higher than the other Garfield books. So it was just like an insane value to get these specifically. Obviously they didn't always have these, but a lot of the time they did. I remember specifically one time we went to this Goodwill and I swear they had like 10 Garfield books that I didn't have. And I think they were each like $1 a piece or something like that. So like we ended up getting like a ton of Garfield books that day because I was just like, oh my gosh, Mom, I gotta have these. This is my new obsession. You know, it was, you know, I eventually did stop. I eventually did, you know, cut myself off, but I did get a fair amount of them before that time came. You know, I really do find charm in just like the way that these books are, just the way that like the front cover looks and like, they just look so retro. I don't know, man, like they just have a really like old-fashioned feel to them. I like how you can kind of see, not so much with like these early books, but the further you go into these, like you can start to see like sort of the more evolved look that Garfield had over time. I really did like get a lot of mileage out of these. Like I would like read them and reread them. I remember like, you know, sometimes before I went to bed, because they just had like this pleasant air to them. Like, you know, they were so just like innocent and wholesome. I don't know, man. They just brought like this warm, fuzzy feeling inside of me. So yeah, no, I you know, I have a lot of fondness looking back at these. I would be lying if I said that I remember like every Garfield comic from all these books. Like I remember, you know, like very specific ones. I remember specifically there was like this weird stretch of comics in like, I don't even know, like it must have been like around this era, like the 8th or 9th book. You know, I couldn't tell you like what year these were. Technically, the comics from these are from mid to late 80s, something like that. But there was this weird stretch where like Garfield had like a rubber chicken that he would like carry around named Stretch. And I don't know why, that just always stood out to me because it was such a random like just element that they just like implemented into the comic strip. It like amounted to nothing because like eventually they like phased him out of the comic, but it was such a weird thing. It was such a brief stint. Like, you know, I don't know why, it just fascinated me. And then there was this other Garfield strip that I kind of want to find and like show off because it always like really creeped me out. So another series of strips that I really remember was this weird one from like Halloween time of, I looked it up, apparently it's from 1989, was this really weird just series of strips that I guess was printed like just on the week leading up to Halloween, where like it's like not really like comedy centric at all. It's like very sort of like introspective or something. It's like really weird, but it's like Garfield wakes up and he's like in this weird like just void of darkness. He's like walking throughout his home and he comes to discover that like his whole family's gone. It kind of leads like, you know, one leads into the next and all that. It like tells like sort of a coherent story within these 6 strips. And it's really weird. It's just like really just creepy and off kilter for like what Garfield usually was. And like, I don't know, I always had like a fascination with this specific stretch of comics because it was so just unlike everything else that Garfield, you know, usually was known for. They would do like weeks of strips that kind of told sort of a linear narrative story where, you know, at the beginning of the week, Garfield would like meet like a dog character and like throughout the week, you know, there would be a dog in every strip that week and each new comic would kind of play off what happened in the previous one and all that. And it was neat when they did that. But this was like, you know, that taken to a different level because it was like not funny at all. It was like very just like creepy. But I kind of liked that. I don't know. It was like, it was interesting. So yeah, Garfield was a very memorable figure from my childhood overall. And yeah, I have a lot of these weird these books. You know, like this one has like this like kind of cool shine on the front, which is neat. And yeah, I have a couple other ones that are worth pointing out. But for the most part, I have a lot of these Fat Cat 3-pack books. 2085 value, now only $9.95. I think I ended up getting these for like maybe like $3, $2 or $3, something like that. That's a steal if you ask me. But yeah, man, we got some more Fat Cat 3-packs. Just a ton of Fat Cat 3-packs. I just had so many of them, man, but I love these. Like these were like, these felt more substantial to read too. Like they lasted longer when I would read them. But yeah, the more of these that I would collect, the more that I just kind of just grew to just really love the character of Garfield and just like the novelty of just like having all of these books, which eventually led me to ask for, you know, the more recent ones. And that's how I ended up getting these. So yeah, these were actually not from Goodwill. Actually, I think this one was. This one was right here. As you can see, these ones are printed in quite a bit bigger size than the other ones, and they were in full color. And yeah, these were like super cool, man. I really like this one in particular because like on the bottom here, on the bottom of these pages here, you can see like there's like a flip book that goes on of Garfield and Odie, which is really cool. Like they didn't have to include that in this book, but they did. Like they just, I don't know, like I think they improved the printing quality as time went on, evident by the fact that this is, you know, a later numbered book, the 37th. You know, over here we got the 39th, Garfield Eats Crow. Great title. Yeah, all of the books, I haven't really mentioned it, but all of the books kind of had like some just like, I don't know, pun or sort of like funny title relating to the fact that Garfield is overweight. If Garfield Makes It Big, we have Garfield Rolls On, and we have Garfield Out to Lunch. Just banger titles right there. We got Garfield Life to the Fullest, Garfield Feels the Kitty, what? Feeds the Kitty, and Garfield Hogs the Spotlight. So, you know, just really, really solid titles. And then we have Garfield Eats Crow, which is, I don't know if that's like a pun or like, I don't know. Like, I do remember this book, like, pretty fondly. I think this was the first like brand new Garfield book I ever got. Like I remember getting this from Barnes & Noble one day, because when we, you know, sometimes me and my mom would like go to Barnes & Noble, and sometimes I would go with like my dad, and we would just kind of sit and just chill out, you know, maybe grab like something from the cafe and just like read a book. And every now and then I would grab a Garfield book and just kind of flip through it. And I don't know, at least 1 or 2 times, or maybe even 3, I would get, you know, I would just go home with a Garfield book, and this was one of those times. So this was a really exciting time because this was, like I said, the first like brand new, not Goodwill bought Garfield book that I ever got. So I have a lot of fondness for this one. And then we have Garfield Fat Cat 3-pack Volume 16. You know, God forbid they make any less than 16 of these. And yeah, these are the 46th, 47th, and 48th books. Great value right here. You know, these are obviously getting into like the later years of Garfield's run, or at least at the time when I got them. Like I think we've gone way past, you know, like 50 books at this point. But yeah, you know, at least at the time, like these were more modern Garfield strips, which I really quite enjoyed reading. And then one day, I think I definitely got this at that Barnes & Noble. I got this, Garfield Potbelly of Gold, his 50th book, which was a pretty big deal. Yeah, it has like this really cool like holographic cover with these mice like jumping on Garfield's belly, which is pretty cool. It made this book feel, you know, way more premium than it had any right to. Cause like by all accounts, I don't think this is like I don't think the strips in here are like any better or more special than like any other average Garfield book. But, oh, there's an ad for Garfield.com and the Garfield show. Yeah, I don't think that these are, like, any more, like, special in terms of, like, the comics inside. It's more so just, like, the cover and just, like, they gave it a more premium feel, which was pretty cool. Yeah, man, I remember going on Garfield.com a ton back then just to, like, read like, you know, older comics, the newest comics. They had like a bunch of like Garfield Flash games that I remember playing. I think those are all like long gone now. I don't know, maybe someone archived them. I'd actually be interested to see if someone did. But yeah, like like so much stuff. I just, you know, I wanted to, if it was Garfield related, I wanted to consume it in some capacity, at least for like a good couple years there. And I think they have some still that I remember playing like even fairly recently, just for the hell of it. Like Garfield's Scary Scavenger Hunt was one that comes to mind, where you're Garfield exploring a haunted house looking for like donuts and stuff like that. Yeah, I would be really interested to see if they archived a lot of those other games. But anyway, yeah, this was like the last sort of like, you know, standard Garfield book that I ever got. And really, like, how could I have possibly topped this? Let's be honest. I do have a couple of stragglers here that aren't really, you know, like chronological Garfield books. And they're more so just like, you know, outliers for one reason or another. First were the Garfield Treasury books that I got. These were also from Goodwill. But these were more like special printed books because these were also in full color. But the whole gimmick of these was that they only contained the Sunday strips, which were infamously longer strips than the average weekday Garfield strips. And so yeah, these were like, I think among the first like fully colored Garfield books that I ever got, which were, you know, they felt really special at the time. And yeah, so I have the first one here, I have the fifth one, and I have the eighth one. These were, you know, I was very inconsistent with the ones that I got of like this series, mainly because it was very inconsistent which ones they would have at Goodwill. Somehow I ended up getting like a lot of the Garfield books in order, at least from like the 1 to 40 range. Like I pretty much have all of those. I might be missing a couple, but for the most part, I have all of those. But I only have 3 of the treasuries here, which, you know, oh well. I might have trouble sleeping tonight, you know, thinking about that, but I'm just gonna have to live with it. Second to last, we have Odie Unleashed, which was, this was another Barnes & Noble pickup. Yeah, this was a really neat one, at least to me at the time, because the whole gimmick of these, guess what it is? Yeah, it's that all of the strips in this book are, you know, they feature Odie in some way. And these ones are also in full color, which was quite nice. The specific memory I have with this book is that I remember, like, I think it was before I got this, I wanted to specifically document every Garfield strip that had Odie in them by date. And so, like, you know, again, this was before I got this book. I went through like all of the Garfield books that I already had and just like I just read every single comic, and anytime Odie would show up, I would write down the date of the specific comic. Yeah, I don't know. That like, I don't know why I decided to do that. It was just like a random thing that I decided to do. I think it took me like, you know, maybe like 2 or 3 days to like go through all of the strips that I did. I mean, I didn't do it like all day, but you know, I spent like a couple hours here and there doing it for like a good solid 2 or 3 days. And yeah, I don't know why I did that. It was just like a little project that I made for myself. But then yeah, after I did that, I discovered this book, which pretty much made all of that work useless. Yippee. But yeah, this is a great little book. I love Odie as a character. He's so wholesome. I hope that they made a second volume of this, because a lot of comics I think have came out since this book released, and we need to have that Odie content documented, man. And finally, we have this Garfield at 25 in dog years I'd be dead. This was a special like anniversary, you know, celebratory book that they came out with for, you guessed it, Garfield's 25th anniversary in 2003, I believe. I don't remember if I got this from Goodwill or if I got this brand new at Barnes & Noble. I really don't remember. It really could go either way, because this book, you know, I can tell I've had it for a while because it just has a lot of like scratches and like blemishes, but it doesn't look like it's inherently like, you know, like I got it used. Like it looks like it could have been brand new at some point when I actually got this. So I don't know, I don't remember. But yeah, man, this book is pretty neat, at least from what I remember. I haven't flipped through it in a while, but yeah, this book is basically just a compilation of just various Garfield behind the scenes stuff regarding the comic and all the different, you know, pieces of media that had come out, at least, you know, at the time when this was published. I actually looked it up. This was actually published in 2002, a year before Garfield's 25th anniversary. Don't get it twisted. I know when Garfield's 25th anniversary is. It's June 19th, 2003, and no one can tell me otherwise. Yeah, we got like, you know, some behind the scenes stuff from the creator, Jim Davis. We got a bunch of like, you know, concept art and like just old sketches of different Garfield characters. We got some information about Jim Davis himself, some old photos, just a bunch of behind the scenes stuff. Some, you know, shout outs from other comic creators, a bunch of little blurbs about, you know, various comic strips, you know, from Jim Davis. A lot of really cool stuff in this book, man. I would actually really like to just like flip through this book on its own and just kind of take a look at it, you know, separately. Mainly because like I feel like there's a lot of cool stuff in this, and like I said, I haven't looked through it in a while. But yeah, no, I remember quite enjoying looking through this. This definitely made me appreciate the history of Garfield more than I had before. Yeah, it's weird to say that a book with this cover would have that impression on me, but you know, here we are. I think when it comes down to it, the biggest thing that I have to appreciate about Garfield as a brand and just as a pop culture entity is it really inspired me to create my own stuff. You know, I no joke, like I made a lot of comics back then that were really inspired by Garfield comic strips. Stemming from those comics, you know, I would go on to do a lot of other like comedic stuff, like make, you know, little comedic sketches, and eventually you know, it would lead me to, you know, where I am today. So thank you, Garfield, for being such a big influence on everything I do today. For better or for worse,